Welcome back to DM-Nastics, the gym for dungeon masters to work out their minds. I'm one of your hosts, DM Celeste, aka Sea Witch.
And I'm your other host, DM Neil, aka Jote Moniac. And today, it was referenced somewhat in the last episode, and just so you know, we talked about that just minutes ago. And today we're going to be talking about an article that we found, and it is violently entitled 10 D&D rules nobody realizes that they are breaking.
Wow.
Okay.
Them fighting words.
Okay, so here's my theory. I alluded to it in the previous episode.
Yes.
I have it. So also this comes from cbr.com and it is written by Isaac Williams. Now that said, I think the article is written by Isaac Williams, but I have a suspicion that there is someone else that does something to these titles.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the URL states D&D rules easy to break.
Oh,
which is not the same as no one realizes they are breaking these rules.
There is some brilliant marketing person sitting behind a desk at cbr.com going, you know what we need to do to get people to read this is fight them.
It's all I can think of because the URL clearly says something different to me than the actual clickable title of this article. And so again, this is part of the whole reason behind these articles and things like that, because they all, for whatever reason, all of the ones that get the most looks and views often say 5, 10, 7, yes. Super inflammatory wording, one direction or the other. But at the end of it, the core, I feel like Isaac to his core was just no, we all kind of make these mistakes and here's 10 of them that I kind of thought of. It's all good. Okay. No one knows this.
No one knows. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, amazing.
So with that out of the way, let's just dive right in because we have 10 of them. And I feel like I was called out a few times because I also think about some of the times that I've carried rules over through editions, never thought twice about it, only to have someone come in and be like, that's not how
it's
that
not
goes.
Actually written anywhere. And you go, what?
And that also means that we're going to entitle this exercise, hey, these aren't my rules.
Hey, who put these rules here?
Yeah, which the second half of that quote is, come to think of it, I don't have any rules.
Yeah.
And that's from the classic Beetlejuice. But what is our number 10 rule that nobody realizes?
Nobody ever realized. Number 10, dexterity bonus doesn't solve initiative ties, which surprised me to hear that. I guess, was that a 3-5 thing?
I don't think it was. I don't know that it was ever a thing.
How did that get started then? Because that feels so universal, as the way to...
It does. From a conceptual standpoint, the idea is that, you almost think of the Old West draw is probably the catalyst for the idea. But then the more nuanced conversation that I hear is okay, so why is it always dexterity that I use for initiative? Could it not be my wisdom? Could it not be my intelligence? I mean, in so many ways, could it not be my charisma? Right. Because I've convinced you that I'm not going to start fighting you and then I punch you in the face. And so I've definitely heard conversations to gear it towards so many other other attributes. But believe you me, the number one that I've used over decades.
Yeah, has been dexterity.
Yeah, because you say okay, I say I got 15. You say you got 15. The first thing we're about to ask each other is, oh, what's your dex bonus?
Yeah. And that's, I feel at so many tables. So I wonder why... I'd be interested in, actually, I'm going to go look this up after because I'm what? But I guess the point is, the answer here, Isaac is saying that technically players can just decide who goes first. So if you have the same initiative or the players decide between players or the GM decides who gets to go first if it's a monster tie. Exactly.
Again, my dragon has rolled a 15. You have rolled a 15. In theory, I'm going to, the GM, I'm going to decide who's first in that scenario. And then the players, that's up to them. They can make that choice, which makes sense. Theoretically, they're a well-oiled machine. They've all been working together. And out of the corner of my eye, I see that you should go first.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is I do it wrong all the time, man.
Yeah. I would say most of the time my players aren't ready to make that decision for themselves. So I'm gonna keep using the Dex modifier because that just reduces decision fatigue. and I like, although I like, some tables may find using a predetermined bonus more fair. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
Because then it's just arbitrary. It's always Dex. It's always who has the higher bonus.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, that most likely means the rogue who took the extra, which I did on my rogue, I took alert because I already get that +5 because then it's more likely I'm going to surprise someone. It's more like, blah, blah, blah. And of course I'm faster.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also, let's continue to add the caveat. Just do it however works for your table. Now that said, nobody knows they're breaking this next
We're telling
rule.
you the secrets. How you've been ruining your relationship. 10 ways, like those magazines in the grocery store. Oh, God.
How to find out if your man hates you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What is the next one? We got to move.
This one hurts. I don't know what to do with this one, but basically characters can cast more than one leveled spell per turn.
Yes.
It's not
technically,
yes. It's so correct, and it hurts because I'm like, I don't know how to have that conversation with anyone. But basically, when a spell requires the bonus action, it can only be like that. It just uses the bonus action. But the fact is, like, if there was something, let's say my first thought is Eldritch Knight giving action surge. Technically, I could cast 2 leveled spells. It's only once you start playing with the bonus action that things get muddy.
Yes.
But it's not wrong. But I also agree that most people would probably say no. But there are fringe cases where it's absolutely you could.
I just got into this, on during a game. It was a whole round robin thing where, of course, we had to like stop the stream and be like, all right, listen, here it is. And it was Counterspell that like dealt with it because the reaction spell. So, I mean, you can cast as a caster on your turn. You can use an action to do that. And then on that same turn, like if somebody counterspells your spell, you can counterspell. All in the same turn. And like Counterspell is a 3rd level spell and whatever you were casting. So it can work. But like the rule, for whatever reason, instead of just making a call, they wrote in the rules like, oh, you have to pay attention to this very specific thing. And most of the things, so that's also something I run into when I'm working with like junior designers. Sometimes they don't realize why spells have been given bonus actions or like as reactions. Like it's part of the secret balancing that goes on in games like D&D.
Yeah, which we'll save a little bit more of that conversation because it's gonna. Don't worry, it's coming up. But what is number 8?
All right, so number 8, natural 1s and 20s only apply to attack rolls. Yes. I know, but we don't like it. Like, I feel like most people know that is technically true, but most people, like me, I don't care. I think it's just fun to celebrate 20s and 1s.
We don't, the general 5e community has not liked it so much that one D&D will change that.
It will absolutely change. Like, it's fun. Like, and it doesn't happen a lot, even with, like, using it for ability checks or saving throws. Like, it's just a fun thing.
And with that, and I've given this piece of advice before, and it's always good to say, if you as the DM or GM, when you are running a game and you're not comfortable with someone rolling a 1 or rolling a 20, don't have that be a roll.
Don't ask them to roll.
Because that 5% chance is a strong 5%. Yeah. When you don't want something to happen, inevitably a person will roll a 20.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the fact of the matter. And always having like that 5% chance does make the game more interesting. In a lot of ways, I guess, a better term because, it is used in so many games. It makes that game more heroic.
Yeah.
That there's always that chance for something that is theoretical. Because once we move to skills, that means that something can be done beyond the abilities of that character if they roll the 20. Because the whole purpose here is if I set a DC of 30 and they roll a 20 and they have a +1, it doesn't matter. It will never matter. This makes it matter. And I think that I think it's more fun.
It is more fun. I mean, I remember, I think it was actually a Call of Cthulhu game where this happened, where like I had a player, is the whole end of the thing. Like there was a chance, like this big ritual, like so many things had gone wrong. And like Call of Cthulhu is a game where you kill people, like or worse, like that. It just happens. Like the players are all ready for it. And I told the player, I was like, all right, you want to do this thing? There's like a 5% chance that this will work. And if it doesn't work, like something very, very bad is going to happen. And he decided to make the roll and he got it. It was under the 5%. And that was the coolest like feeling for all of us. Even me as the GM, I was like, oh my God, like fate, like what? Like that kind of magic is more likely to happen if you just open up natural ones and 20s to all rolls.
Well, and I think about like, it works everywhere. This concept works everywhere. I was in a poker tournament recently, and like my chances of winning a hand, basically to double my money and take someone out and stay in this tournament, were very low. But I had to go in, or else I wouldn't win.
Right.
And lo and behold, the card I needed comes up at the very end, and it just like the whole room just erupts.
Yeah.
The same thing with like when you're watching any sporting event, like the likelihood that X happens, and it does, everyone loses, just goes bananas. Just yes. Okay. Now that said. This one is also interesting because like I think people know, but I think they don't know. So number 7 is sneak attack doesn't actually require, and I will add this extra word, any sneaking ever.
Any sneaking ever. Yeah.
Like that's just, I mean, I play a high level rogue. Basically the only two requirements for gaining sneak attack is that you have advantage for literally any reason, or there is someone with it, an ally within 5 feet.
Yep.
That's it. You win. Now you have sneak attack.
There you go.
But part of that is because you want your poor rogue, who is often throwing a dagger. This rogue throws daggers, and if I don't get sneak attack, I'm just a guy throwing daggers at people.
Yeah, and I mean, rogues only get 1 attack on their turn, right? So like they don't get extra attack, so it's got to be good.
Yeah, and the idea that you're layering in the like trying to gain advantage as part of that process, so that you're more likely to hit with that all or nothing 1 attack. But yeah, basically if you took 1 feat and got find familiar, you would always get sneak attack and literally never sneak anywhere ever for any reason. Yeah.
Well, it's also too, I don't think people realize how actually complicated sneaking, like hiding is in 5e. It is awful. Like the number of steps you have to go through, and it's maddeningly unclear. Like, you make the hide check, and that doesn't actually mean you're hidden. That means that the other creature can constantly roll, but they have to roll with penalties. And like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And also, if you're hidden, that doesn't mean that things can't like find you. It just means they can't see you. So if something can smell, like you're not hidden. Like there's all kinds of nonsense.
Well, yeah, and even being completely invisible based on the spells is only incurring disadvantage. It's not even incurring more than that. And well, and then like you want that additional there are several one layer is actually going to come up when we get to
no.
But the other layer is like doing all of this in combat.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is number 6 though?
So number 6, most magic items don't regain all their charges every day. I feel like most people know this.
And so if we're
right?
So this is the difference between the URL and the stated title of this article.
Yes.
Because I feel like anyone that doesn't take the time to look at it, and I'm not faulting anyone for that, because again, like you've played for X number of years.
Yeah.
Magic items just recharge, blah, blah, blah. But if you didn't look at that fact that it doesn't, then you just assume that it does, only to find out later that's not true. Also, I feel like some of them don't really like you to use them all the way, or they kind of want to
so that's
which is also very odd.
Yeah, that's why I feel like people would pay attention to this rule, because I can think of at least like 10 or so items right now that like if you run out of charges, you have to roll and it explodes, like, and it's very bad. Like the Horn of Blasting, I think, is one. It's like 66 thunder damage to everybody standing within 5 feet of you, and the item is destroyed.
Oh yeah. So I feel like that's probably the rule that less people know is that second one, because my thought would be because let's say I don't know either rule.
Yeah.
Then if that's true, I'm going to use the Horn of Blasting all the time.
All the time.
I'm going to run it out. I'm going to go to sleep and then I'm going to run it out.
We're going to do it again. Yeah.
Only to find out that one, it probably blew up. And if it didn't blow up, here's the other part though. It's not always fun either.
Yeah.
Because that's a weird thing to balance. The idea that every day that I wake up, I could either gain, let's say 1 or 6 charges.
Yeah.
I get it. It's weird. I don't know that it's as fun. And if like it's not working at your table, my advice would probably be to lessen the charges that an item has.
Yeah.
And basically you're just because at that point, a D6, the average roll of a D6 is 3.5. So if I say that, every morning you wake up, you always get 3 instead of saying, unfortunately, you got 1 today.
Unfortunately, today. I also feel like and maybe this is just me or not, but like it is very hard to track days in D&D because I feel like it's either like, oh, we're tracking time very carefully because we're in an adventure, like we're in a dungeon, we've been here for 4 hours, whatever, like tracking our spells. But often my players will go, well, how many days has it been? Like we have a character that like something changes pretty dramatically every day for them in the campaign I'm currently running. And that has been a challenge even for me as a DM to be like, okay, wait, when did they sleep? Like how many days has it been? And be like, oh, we've been playing, in real life for a year, but yes, it's been like 20 days in the game, right?
Because even like 2 long rests in a day is very feasible.
Yeah.
I mean, to accomplish. So then should it be that way?
Okay.
Just read the description of the magic item and heck, read it out loud for your players.
Heck it. Yeah.
Okay. This one's real fun for me because I agree. People definitely don't do this one. Creatures can't ready actions outside of combat.
Yeah. I feel like that's...
Oh no, people really want to do it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Like, if so-and-so comes around the corner, I want to do this and that.
Ah.
So, like, trying to basically staging an ambush to some degree is kind of always the goal to get the jump. And I do understand it, but technically you can't because you're not inside of combat. So you can't ready an action because you're setting that action aside with a caveat that it would happen after X amount. Or X happens, I do Y. That's how you ready an action.
I guess I'm thinking of this more like kind of, and maybe it's just because I've kind of trained my players to do this as well, but like it's all, ability checks and like you have all access to everything like around, like before, but then once initiative is rolled, that's when like those specific actions like attacks and stuff come into play. Like we would have to roll immediately if they did want to trigger something like that. So yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And I think the base concept is like rules as written, you aren't going to get to do this thing for free. Because that's kind of the goal that I'm going for is, let's say it's a fireball and I just cast fireball. The idea that I just cast fireball outside of combat because they walk around the corner. No.
Right.
That's basically what we're saying. We're saying no. I don't know. It depends on how much, I don't know. It kind of, so much of my thought is like, how much are they invested in this process? If they're really invested in this process and making it happen, then I'm going to say
just
yes.
let them do it. Like if they want to incinerate everyone in a building, all right. I guess, if it is like an enemy or something there, I would probably have them, if they want to do that, immediately roll initiative. And then maybe put them at the top of the order is like what I might do. Yeah, or I would have them roll first, like, okay, maybe are you trying to do like a stealth thing, and if they're successful, I'd let them do it. Yeah, I guess I see your point. That is kind of tricky. Yeah,
because the theory would go, we've all already rolled initiative. It's my turn. So let's say I've taken my movement, I've done my bonus, and now I'm going to say with my action on my turn, I am going to ready.
Ready. Yeah.
That's the concept that we're working with here is that you can't ready your action because it's not your turn in combat. So you don't technically have an action.
Right.
Again, not how I'm going to do it, but I get it.
Yeah. Okay. I guess the point is ready is an action that can only be taken during combat.
Correct. Yeah. So, your turn in combat. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like maybe I'm lucky. I don't have to deal with this so much, but I've never had that minute distinction cause a problem for me. So,
They're out there.
They're out there. I believe it. Probably D&D.
I'm just letting you know.
I'm guessing
they're
AL
out there.
folks. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, GMs who have to deal with this. Tell your players to chill.
Calm down.
Send them to this article. Challenge them. Say, what you don't know about D&D could fill an article. And
you and everyone else is woefully unaware.
Oh my god.
Okay, so what's number 4?
Number 4, inspiration grants advantage, not rerolls. Yes, I know. But again, like the ones and 20s, it's so much more fun the other way.
Yeah. It's such a good mechanic.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to get your players to use it.
And inspiration, it's already hard for them to remember they have it, usually. It's already hard for GMs to remember to give it out. And then if you're limiting it even more to making it just advantage as per the rules instead of a reroll, like, God, that's going to limit even further the chances that it's actually ever going to get used.
Yeah, and part of it, I guess, is that it doesn't feel wrong because of how infrequently it gets used anyways.
Yeah.
Given, you think of older editions with hero points or bennies in other situations, or most games in general kind of have some mechanic that ends up being a reroll.
Yeah. Like luck points or whatever,
So,
yeah.
Oh, I agree. It's definitely not how it is supposed to use, and I am fully aware of that.
Yeah.
But
I
again,
don't like it.
per the URL, it is easy to break.
It is easy to break, and maybe you should. Maybe you should. Also, I just feel like it's just such a bummer when you fail a roll, and you would spend your inspiration and to get advantage, and both your rolls are bad, and like, what was the point of that, right? At least if you're doing a reroll, like, even if you still don't roll better, there's that little hope you go on that journey, other than just like flat misery.
Yeah,
flat
just do it.
misery.
Just do it. Just let them have it.
Oh boy,
Okay.
This next one. I like this next one. What's the next one, Neil?
Okay, admittedly, this is one of the few that I actually didn't know.
You didn't?
Or at least I did. Well, just in the sense that, like, I guess I had never thought through it this much. One, because I really don't play a lot of characters that do ranged attacks. Also, okay, number 3. Ranged attacks have disadvantage on anybody when an enemy is within 5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never thought about it because oftentimes if I have an enemy within 5 feet of me as a ranged character, I am actively doing 2 things. Either running away to not be in 5 feet or attacking them.
Yeah.
And so I've always thought, I get disadvantage on that person that I'm attacking because they are within 5 feet of me. But that's not the right way to think about it. I would get disadvantage on all ranged attacks because they are within 5 feet of me. That is to say that if I shot at anyone else, I would still have disadvantage because obviously I would. The person next to me is trying to stab me while I'm trying to do something.
Right, and you're trying to crank a giant like crossbow. Yeah, this is I like this one. I've had to teach quite a few people. I don't think you're alone in missing this. Like, and it is, sort of hidden in the combat rules. But yeah, I like it a lot because the logic of it makes sense. Like, if you've ever seen someone shoot a bow, like, you try and do that with somebody like standing right in your face, like, it's just, it can't be done.
And again, Isaac does really well explaining in the final sentence, it doesn't represent the difficulty of a point blank shot, but the challenge of lining up an arrow while dodging a sword.
Yeah. While somebody's, swinging at your face, or like you don't have the space to like draw your string, right? That kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's cool because like Isaac mentions, ranged stuff is really powerful because most creatures are weighted towards melee attacks. So yeah, you got to remember, like, this helps balance the game a little bit for those ranged characters.
Yeah, because the likelihood that you could kill something before it even gets close enough to do a single attack. Number 2.
Number 2, bonus actions can't be used as actions. Yeah.
Okay. But it is hard. It is a hard concept because I don't think it gets muddy because people want it to be a little bit more muddy, and I totally understand all the reasons behind it. But the way to think about it, and this is me this is me voicing the way I've had to force
Yes.
my brain to work with these things, is that the 4 things that you can do in a turn, round, whatever, the 4 things your character can do exist in silos. When I do a reaction, those are reactions.
Yeah.
When I do bonus actions, those are bonus actions. When I do actions, those are actions. And when I move, that's movement. And they are in 4 silos.
Yeah.
Things cross very, very rarely, but for the most part, you have to look at them as 4 totally separate things that can happen.
Yeah.
You just happen to be the one character that can do them all, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's probably, I have the advantage probably of thinking of this as like someone who designs for a living. Like when people are always like, oh, like, why would you make this a bonus action? Like, well, what are you doing? It's like the action economy that is built into all of these classes and subclasses. It's like so precise. Like there's absolutely a reason why these 2 things are a bonus action, because in the mechanics, it would be bonkers if you could do them on the same turn. So this is a way to kind of help. You have to really be thoughtful about your turns and like build it in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's the same with like a reaction. Like I can't take a reaction
Right.
using my action.
Right. It has to trigger something, right? Like, yeah, and it's easier to grasp with reactions because they always have the trigger conditions, whereas bonus actions, you think, oh, it's just like an extra thing. Perhaps the problem is we called it bonus action, right? Instead of saying like, you know, minor, well, even minor, it'd be like you'd assume, yeah. I can see how that would be tricky. Yeah.
Extra action.
Extra action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but ultimately, it's like you said, because those things are put in the specific spaces and places with design in mind. Especially you think about the classes that end up. It also feels weird. The class that ends up not having a lot to do with their bonus action, they feel hampered because they literally can't do anything with that silo because it's empty.
That's why it's important, spellcasters, to pick spells that require bonus actions. I've talked about this a lot, but when you choose your spells, you should almost never start with the spell description. You should look at your action economy and be like, do I have a reaction spell? Do I have a bonus action spell? Do I have a way with this character build to use my bonus action effectively? If the answer is no, then you need to pick something else. Yep.
All right. Here we go.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. All right. Number 1.
There we go.
Surprise rounds don't exist.
Welcome aboard. It's okay, but there's a second layer that this gets into that is really interesting to me that I don't. Again, it's like sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I just don't want to think about those things. I'm just playing. We're all just playing.
We're just here. We're just playing. We're just learning and playing together and sneaking around.
Yeah. So again, the idea of readying that action, that's not really how that works. You can prepare for combat, but that's different. And so then it happens. Players often want to get the drop on enemies, is how it describes it, using stealth to catch them unprepared. But basically, when combat happens, you're rolling initiative, and we're all deciding where we go in this initiative. And you can decide whether or not someone has the surprised condition, but that's also interesting.
Yes.
Because if they're higher in the initiative order than you are, they won't have the surprise condition when it gets to you in the first round.
Yep.
And that's the thing that's probably the part of this that I think people aren't realizing, myself included, thinking, because I think, in my head, I would have thought, and essentially I would have given a surprise round, that someone holds the surprise condition for the first round. But that's not true.
Mm-mm.
They hold the surprise condition for their first turn.
Yep.
Which is always which is also another really important distinction when we're talking about 5e, the difference between a turn and a round.
Yes.
It's also the same reason. It's also the reason why a rogue can sneak attack 3 times in a round, because they did it with their attack. Then the Battlemaster fighter let them use their reaction, so there's different ways and spaces that a person can get more sneak attacks because it's not on their turn, it's in the round. But yeah, ultimately, if the enemy just rolls super, super high, they're just not surprised at all.
It doesn't matter. that's why, like, and I feel like people don't realize there are some like items and feats and things that people are like, oh, that's garbage. Why would I ever take that? Because it has to deal with surprise. But actually, that if you're playing rules as written, that actually helps you quite a lot because it doesn't even matter what your initiative is. So if you have, the bow of warning or whatever it is that says you can never be surprised while you hold this bow, like that's a pretty big advantage to come in with. Like, when a monster does pop out of wherever, and they're obviously going to have a higher, initiative roll than you. It is unfortunate. Like, I get why this is hard because also, like, surprised is technically a condition in 5e, but it's not listed with the other conditions in the PHB. So it's very hard to find what the heck it is and where it is.
Which... it's so hard to write books of this nature because you although it not being with the conditions does seem like a bit of a miss. But the idea of like how to give players information in a good directional method as you're reading through the book. But I also think about just using surprised more. And like even in my own games at my own table, the idea that the party and the enemies come together, the likelihood that someone is surprised in that is higher than I probably am giving it credit. I also think about surprising someone midway through combat. It's plausible because, again, it's just a condition, the same way that I could charm someone, the same way that I could poison someone. There's nothing to be said that, and making sure, though, in this implementation, the reason I would do it with a monster to surprise a character is to illustrate to the player that that's something that they could also do. Like that's really what my ultimate goal is. And that, or just the idea that we both can. You can do it, I can do it. But the idea of having another monster pop out of a wall, the likelihood that everyone else is surprised is high, including the other monsters that were there. But probably using the surprise condition more would alleviate any issues you have at your table with the fact that, surprise rounds is just absolutely wholesale not a thing.
Not a thing in 5e, which I definitely forgot for a lot because they were definitely a thing in all the editions I played.
Oh, yeah.
But think about it. I encourage you GMs next time you have a dungeon, for instance, to like really think about the surprise condition. And that's the best way to set up ambushes and stuff. I mean, that's why dungeons were historically so dangerous in older editions and why I think they don't get a lot of love in 5e for whatever reason. I think people are confused about why they're there, but like those tight corners, like the dark spaces, trap doors and like moving walls, like the perfect way to play with a surprise condition and like really get your players to see some creative stuff is to incorporate these kind of encounters in your dungeons.
Yeah, I also think about the idea of just treating it better or treating it with more care. The idea that, you could be face to face with the enemy because it's more of a social setting. And the idea that, things have gone far enough. The next step that is going to happen is that either the player or the NPC is going to punch the other person. We all know that now. So we're going to roll for initiative. And let's say, it's me as the GM. I've decided my character, my NPC is definitely going to punch you in the face. So now we all roll initiative. Let's say the character that's about to be punched manages to roll higher. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super fun for the table.
That's the Monk's stuff. That's the Matrix move, right? You're like, I'm dodging bullets. Like that's what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, you notice that slight twitch in the hand before the fist starts to come up your way, but you're not surprised. That doesn't mean they're not going to get hit.
Yeah.
It just means they're not going to, have that surprise condition beforehand. Well, there we go. There was 10 rules that are easy to break.
Has ever
or
about.
that no one realizes they're breaking.
You're doing it wrong. No, thank you, Isaac. I'm sure you had the best of intentions with this article, and it was good. I feel like
I'm dead set there's someone that changes the titles of these because it's what makes sense.
I wonder if Isaac is sitting at his desk and like getting angry email and being like, why that's not what I said.
Just check the URL. Look at the URL.
Just look at the URL. But I was innocent. But anyway, that was great. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. So if you enjoyed that and you want to tell us, how much fun that was, like you hate the way that we didn't remember how surprise works, leave us a review and tell us. Basically any reviews are good. So even if it was, 1 star, they didn't know what surprise was, we'll take it on whatever podcast app you are listening to. Reviews, just having more of them helps people find the show. So we really, really appreciate when you take the time to do that. And of course, if you want to tell us directly about rules that we have forgotten or you have forgotten at your table, you can always reach out to us at via email at dmnastics@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at DM-Nastics, me at C. Konowich, and Neil at Joe Moniac. And for everything else on the network, you can always visit blockpartypodcastnetwork.com.
And as always, a huge thank you to the bards over on Bombarded for our intro and outro music. You can find more about them at bombardedcast.com. But with that, rather than let these mental gains go to waste, let's head to taking your supplements. Taking your supplements! Celeste, you have a supplement for us to discuss. Tell me about it.
I do. And I'm very excited because this actually touches a lot on something we talked about in this episode, surprise rounds and dungeons. And so the book that I have to recommend for you all is How to Defend Your Lair, which is the newest book from Keith Amon. So if you don't know who Keith Amon is, or you haven't seen any of his books before, you should definitely check them out. Because if you are interested in this show and exercises and ways to think about creative encounter building and setting up, just great adventures, you should definitely check out Keith's stuff. Probably his most famous book, his first book, was called The Monsters Know What They're Doing, where basically Keith goes and looks at each monster in the monster manual and then gives you strategies for how these monsters would play smart in combat. And so with this new book, he's taken it to the next level, How to Defend Your Lair, where he talks about different types of monsters and what they might do to set up their lairs to defend against adventurers. So he introduces, he goes through and actually has little maps and graphics and trap suggestions, and goes through creature type, what might humanoids build to, deter adventurers, or how might an ooze handle somebody coming into their lair. So it's a lot of really cool stuff, and it's in a hardcover book format or soft cover, I believe, but it's a book that you can sit down and read. So they're very fun and packed with great ideas and wisdom. And Keith is a very nice person. So I totally encourage you all to go and check out, How to Defend Your Lair. Level up your dungeon game.
Perfect. Yeah, and they look great, all 4 of them. So this is the 4th book in the series. So if you do find this one to be enjoyable, and it's a fairly recent release within the past several weeks.
Yeah.
But basically, there will be a link in the show notes, and from there you can link out to where you would prefer to buy it, be it Amazon or somewhere else. But this, let's be honest, this is the kind of book for the players that have played for a longer time, and basically you don't want your monsters to be bags of hit points.
Right.
You want them to do more intuitive things. So you can read these books and you can figure out how to do those.
Yeah. Even better, I'm looking right now, there are actual just straight up layers that you can put in your game. He has full maps and encounters and new magic items you can put in there. So really great stuff.
Yeah, which is great, because some of these things also, they can work in more of an anecdotal and completely written form. But the idea of saying, no, here's a layer and here's the things you could do with the layer, definitely starts to give you the tools to be able to do that with anything that you get from any publisher. So like I said, links in the show note, that'll link you out to be able to buy it. And then tell Keith whatever you want to tell him. You can tell him we
Keith,
sent you.
Celeste sent you. He's very nice. He always comes by the Kobold Press booth and makes sure that I get a copy of his new stuff. So he's very sweet and very kind. So tell him thank you for this gift, Keith.
There we go. But with that, we'll turn out the lights and head out of the gym.
Before we go, I want to implore you, the listener, to join the forums, the Discord, Twitter, and anywhere else you can find us, and take part in these challenges, exercises, and other amazing conversations being had.
And to do that, head over to dungeonmasterblock.freeforums.net and try some DM-Nastics, so your players don't ask, do you even lift?